Hey everyone, I have something very crazy for you guys. This is trending like crazy everywhere. And since we're talking about interstellar objects, 3i Atlas so much here, asking the question, is this alien? Is it a spacecraft or what is happening? Guys, you need to hear this. And I don't even know, well, let's dive into this. Headline, is the Bank of England preparing for aliens? This is real, guys. So I want to look at the facts versus a potential media hype. Is it a media hype? Let me start with a sentence that sounds completely insane, and yet it is real. A former senior analyst from the Bank of England just right now has publicly urged the Bank of England to prepare for the economic shock of an official alien announcement. Economic shock, stock markets, hint, hint. So now before you click away thinking this is clickbait, conspiracy nonsense, or some TikTok hysteria, guys, stay with me because what's actually happening here is far more interesting. It really is. And it's far more serious, we have to say that, and far more revealing about how fragile our financial system really is. That just as a side note, I mean, if the aliens are here, who cares about the financial system, right? So it's not about the little tiny green men landing tomorrow. And by the way, I don't know if you have seen these documentaries. There's intel from personnel that works there. They said they have alien in custody in the US, spacecraft and organic bodies, and they look like large frogs. So that aside, let's get back what we just heard in an announcement. So it's not about how modern civilization reacts to belief. This is about how modern civilization reacts to belief-shattering information. And that's where it gets uncomfortable. So who is exactly that person who said this? And why does this matter? So the person behind the story is called Helen McCaw. She's not a UFO influencer. She's none of that. She is not a YouTuber, TikToker, anything. And most importantly, she's not a conspiracy theorist. So she is a Cambridge educated economist who has worked for about a decade inside the Bank of England as a senior analyst. She has focused on financial security and systemic risk, basically the exact discipline that looks at how things break when everyone panics at once. We've seen it with 9/11 and events like this, right? Usually the stock markets are halted then to prevent a complete downfall and complete crash. So yeah, if we now announce the aliens are amongst us, what would people do? So she thought about that. And after she left the Bank of England, she worked in wealth management and financial technology. And only years later began writing about a very uncomfortable question. What happened to markets if governments confirm something that permanently changes humanity's worldview? That she asked as a general question. Her answer was simple and terrifying in both ways. Markets don't crash because of facts. They crash because of belief collapse. If people stop believing in a system or stop believing in the current reality, that's when people panic, and that's when it gets dangerous. It's basically, if you have horses, I have horses. If your horse bolts and then they're in panic mode and flight mode, then they gallop like crazy, and then you have to try to stop them. It's not that easy. So what the article says, let's have a look at that. Is that different from what social media claims? Let's be very precise here, because this is all over the place right now. So she has published this article in the Times. So the article, let me say that before we dig deeper. It doesn't say the aliens are coming. It doesn't say aliens have been confirmed. It doesn't say explicitly that the Bank of England does have alien files or that the central bank believes UFOs are here. But what it does say is this. Helen McCaw formally urged the bank's governor, Andrew Bailey, to include an extraterrestrial disclosure scenario in its financial stress testing. That's it already. How does she come up with something like this, right? So, but that's what she said. No more, no less. And stress testing, that is something that especially central banks do all the time. So why would a central bank even think about this? And here is where it gets fascinating, guys. Central banks are actually already running simulations for multiple things. Global pandemics, well, we've been through this, and they already did this before COVID ever happened. Of course, nuclear war scenarios these days, also cyber attacks that shut down payment systems, very, very important. Sudden loss of trust in the fiat currency, also important. Of course, AI-driven market crashes, climate-driven financial collapse. And so her argument was not aliens are real. She hasn't said that. Her argument was, if governments confirm non-human intelligence, the economic shock could be larger than any event we've ever modeled. And when you think about it, she's not wrong. So let's say all these people calling to declassify all the information that the US has about UFOs and aliens, if let's say they declassify what many ex-CIA, many ex-government, many ex-military personnel are saying that they saw. This could be a ripple effect. And with the current administration, they have announced that they might be willing to do that. So what would actually happen if aliens were confirmed? Let's walk through this logically, step by step. So first, markets would not react rationally. They never, ever do. If you have ever owned stocks, you might have experienced it already. So there would be massive stock market volatility, of course. People don't know what to do, what's going to happen to the world, right? If I have a stock that produces some certain things, will that still be happening? They're worried. They want their money back. Will money even exist after that, right? So people do immediate panic trading, although they don't know what they're doing. They have like a sudden flight to safe havens, whatever these might be. They're going maybe in like gold or government bonds. I'd rather choose gold these days, but simultaneous speculative surges then into crypto and fringe assets maybe. Why? Because the rules of their reality would feel to be broken. And second, important, bank runs become plausible as well. So not because the banks are empty, but because the trust is evaporating. We've seen this during the pandemic. We've seen it in Europe where banks would only give you $50 or $80 per day that you could withdraw in cash from your bank. People do not withdraw money because it's gone. That's not how they react. They withdraw money because they fear that everyone else will. That's what they do. And you look at during the pandemic, everyone was buying toilet paper. That's the same exact phenomenon. And that's how financial systems collapse. There is no shortage in cash, but everyone thinks that everyone's going to get their cash and that there might be one, so they create one. Same with the toilet paper. There was no shortage, but they created one. They were fighting for toilet paper. And guys, I have to say, I predicted this. It was funny. Like a year or 2 years before the pandemic, I was talking to a friend, and he asked me, well, what would you invest? What's a safe investment that people always need, right? That was mine. And then often people say Coca-Cola or something like this. And I said toilet paper. Was I right or not, guys? About that on a side note. So a third option that is really important, it's like payment systems become vulnerable. Even a small even if the percentage of people that stops trusting is small. We have ATMs, digital payments, we have online banking, we have the currency itself. You can get localized chaos very, very quickly. And fourth, political legitimacy is also shaken pretty quickly if you think the aliens are going to take over. So if governments knew or are perceived to have known, public trust collapses rapidly, and financial systems are built entirely on trust. So it's a ripple effect. And McCaw's core warning was this. She said, the discovery itself wouldn't crash the system. The human reaction would. And I think she's right. And why? Here's the question in the room. Why is this being discussed now, you might ask? This conversation didn't just appear out of nowhere. I would say over the last few years, the governments have acknowledged unidentified aerial phenomena. They have. And by the way, if you have watched my 3i Atlas videos, the reaction of the CIA is really strange. NASA took them forever to release the images. Then they said, it's just a comet, nothing to see here. Nobody tries to explain the 20 anomalies that 3i Atlas has. Significant anomalies. We just discovered one yesterday. Videos in the end screen. Oh, and by the way, guys, can you leave a like and a hype for this video? It doesn't cost you anything. It helps my channel. So CIA then said to 3i Atlas, when people ask them for the Freedom of Information Act about 3i Atlas, they said information is classified. What? I mean, NASA says just a comet, case closed. CIA, wow, all the conspiracy theorists are out now, right? So, okay. Over the last few years, more and more like UFOs are here. The aliens are already amongst us. We saw like unidentified objects coming out of the ocean on the West Coast, San Diego, that couldn't be explained, that disappeared into the water. We've had theories. Are they living in the ocean? I mean, so much of our oceans is unexplored. We have no clue what's going on down there. We have scientific institutions that have admitted some observations that remain unexplained. NASA, the Pentagon, some other agencies have changed the language from UFO to UAP, which I don't really like. I think UFO is a cool, flying saucer is a cool thing. So the taboo around the topic has somewhat weakened, right? It has. And none of that proves aliens to us. Yet, I would say. But does it normalize the idea that something unexpected could be confirmed? That's the question you have to ask yourselves. Are they preparing us for something if they release, if there is a truth that aliens are amongst us? Are they preparing us gently for that so that we don't switch our switch and see red and go crazy? Is that it? I recently discussed it with you guys in one of my 3i Atlas videos, and I said it to myself. I saw this documentary where several guys, high-ranking guys, ex-military, ex-CIA, ex-FBI, ex-government, ex-people that worked in these facilities, Roswell, said that it's true. They said it's true. They said they've seen it. They said they still cannot say everything because stuff is classified. But they went to Congress. They wanted the files to be released, to declassified. And I said to you guys, I said, well, for some reason, that doesn't get me over the top. It's like, yeah, okay, interesting. But it doesn't get me really like, oh, I'm so excited or scared or, oh gosh, the aliens are here. It's somewhat, I'm staying like neutral somewhat. I don't know why. So it's kind of weird. Let me know in the comments what's your reaction when you hear these UFO sightings and stories, and yeah, you see the video, there's another video, but it's all grainy, and you're just wondering, right? So does all that normalize the idea that something unexpected could be confirmed? Is that what they're trying? Many say, well, it's just distraction so that they can do other political things. Who knows? But from a risk management perspective, and that's what she looked at, I mean, ignoring that possibility would frankly be irresponsible. I think you can agree with me on that. And here it comes. This is interesting. When she said that, what has the Bank of England actually said? You hear me say nothing. It is nothing. So, and that's important, right? The Bank of England did not confirm, did not deny, did not endorse or comment on the suggestion. So, which is exactly what central banks do when someone proposes an extreme hypothetical, right? They're kind of scared to push the narrative in the wrong direction. So silence does not equal agreement, but silence does also not mean that the idea is ridiculous. The deeper issue is that what we're interested in. What is this actually about? I think this story isn't about aliens. It's about how brittle our modern civilization has become. And I really think that our systems, they assume that we have always stable beliefs, predictable narratives, institutional trust, gradual change. An extraterrestrial confirmation would be basically the definition of a non-linear shock. Like, not linear, boof, that's what it would be. And central banks exist to think about those. That's what they have to do, not because they expect them, but because failure to plan is failure to govern. It absolutely is. So Helen McCaw's position is uncomfortable because it exposes something that we don't like to admit. Our financial system is psychologically fragile. That's what it is. So in my opinion, if I say I want to give you the final clarity, the fact versus fiction here with this hype that's going on just right now, let's lock this down clearly. We have confirmed facts that a former Bank of England senior analyst urged hypothetical planning. No alien confirmation exists yet. No official policy or program is public. The discussion is about market psychology and not the aliens themselves. But it's not true. The Bank of England is preparing for alien contact. At least they haven't said that. Governments have confirmed extraterrestrial life. No, they haven't yet, maybe. That this is a secret disclosure leak doesn't look like this. Is this intentional? Does she want to push something in a direction that she makes that public? Maybe. Right? Why do you go public with this? If she has worked at the central bank, she can channel that to the right person. So there's always a reason why maybe she wants to be more known publicly, wants to put herself on the stage because she has other plans. Maybe she wants to run for office or something. Who knows? I don't really know. Why should you care? That's also, why should we care? Right? All of us. Because if something this hypothetical can threaten financial stability, really, guys, this tells us something profound, and most of you probably already knew that. Our systems are not resilient to truth shocks, right? We've seen it with the housing market in 2008, but it doesn't matter where that shock comes from. Aliens, AI, financial collapse, climate systems, or something that we haven't imagined yet, right? And then something that comes in addition. If something happens like 9/11, stock markets are open, and then there's the big financial institutions and some smaller guys, they short the markets right away. They short sell the markets, they push everything down. That accelerates the collapse, right? That many times if something like this happens, they really try to halt the markets, or if governments do some important strikes or something like this, they usually do it on the weekend. You don't want to hurt the stock market. You wait till Friday until everything closes, and then you go for it. So, but the lesson is the same that we're taking away from here. The real danger is not the unknown. It's basically the real danger is how unprepared we are to emotionally process it. We are being held together by our society, but it takes just a little bit that you go to Costco and the toilet paper aisle is empty. You go at each other. It sometimes scares me, really, when I see how, what can I say, raw we humans really are. So Guys, I'll keep you updated about this. I thought you might want to know, since we're really thinking about aliens quite a bit with 3i Atlas. And a new video is coming that is very, very interesting. So stay tuned, subscribe. Thank you for liking and hyping. Stay safe, be prepared. How can we prepare for aliens? Maybe like a hello sign or something like this. I don't know, guys. Let me know. See you soon. Here's something interesting for you in the end screen. Bye-bye.